A very large winter storm is soon going to be impacting nearly the entire country, bringing the threats for extremely heavy snowfall, very significant ice accumulation, and potentially even some minor severe weather. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about this system, going in depth into certain specific regions, the specific impacts for those regions, and more. So if you guys are excited for this video, make sure to click those like and subscribe buttons down below. I'm not overstating whenever I say this could potentially be the winter storm of the year, maybe even the winter storm of the decade if things turn out, in a worst case scenario for this storm. So we've got to make sure that we are watching and covering all of our bases here because this is going to be an extremely significant event for, again, a very large chunk of the country. Normally, whenever we're talking about a winter storm threat, we're talking about the Midwest or the Northeast or sometimes even portions of Dixie Alley. Well, today it's going to be all of those areas that we're concerned about. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into this video by taking a look at the 18Z GFS model here. At the time of filming, and hopefully by the time of uploading, this is still a brand new run of the GFS, and it has got a nasty look for this storm. At hour 48 Friday afternoon, we've got some snow showers developing there across portions of the Central Plains and the Eastern Rockies, but we've also got the potential for some severe weather down into portions of eastern Texas. Whenever I say severe weather, I mean damaging winds, maybe a couple of large hailstones. We're definitely not looking at any sort of tornado threat, but it is going to be potentially a organized enough system to bring some very low-end storm reports. So make sure to be on the lookout for that, but eventually these systems are going to sort of collide here into one big thing, and we're going to be watching a monstrous winter storm ravage portions of the Central Plains in the Mid-South on Friday night back into Saturday morning and afternoon. You can see here by 12 p.m. on Saturday, we have a nasty, nasty look at this monstrous winter storm firm having snow all the way from West Virginia back into Colorado simultaneously. In that big old band of purplish pink color in there, that is your ice accumulation, and this is going to be the most dangerous part of the storm, most likely, where we're going to be watching for the potential of significant travel impacts on roads anywhere from all the way into portions of southern Appalachia back into Texas and even eastern New Mexico. So pretty significant band of ice there. Eventually, by Sunday morning around church time, we're going to be watching for the threat of ice all the way from the Delmarva Peninsula back through to portions of Texas and potentially even all the way back towards the Texas-Mexico border. This would be a historic event if things do play out like this, and there's a very good chance that it could. Meanwhile, we've got that big-time band of snow there stretching all the way from New Jersey and southern New York back through to New Mexico. Again, it's not an understatement to say that this system will be impacting hundreds of millions of people, so very significant system here. The new GFS model suggests that it's going to continue its way east, bring some more heavy snow and ice accumulation, but by Monday afternoon it should be on its way out of here, hopefully, and we should be just watching for some breaking cold over the next couple of days after that. So if something like this plays out, what are we going to be looking at in terms of impacts? Well, it's going to be pretty significant, and we're going to break this down region by region. Starting off with portions of the Southern Plains, this is the area that actually is likely to see the most significant impacts from this entire event. We've got portions of the Arklatex region forecasted at over 2 feet of snow. No, that is not an over-exaggeration. That is what the 18Z GFS shows, and that's what the GFS has been showing for a long time now. 27 inches of snow is forecast along the Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas tri-state region. Over a foot of snow remaining intact there all the way to the south side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Little Rock, Arkansas looking at about 20 inches of snow if something like this were to play out, and portions of southeastern Oklahoma sitting at just over a foot of snow. Even back into Amarillo, Texas, you could be looking at over half a foot of snow with something like this. Jackson, Mississippi, 8 inches of snow, which for that region would be historic. But this comes with an extremely important caveat. The GFS loves to overshoot the ice accumulation and sort of conflate it with snow accumulation. So these totals definitely could be a bit overshot and overstated on this run, even if we see something crazy like the GFS 18Z is predicting. The totals may not necessarily be this high, and they may be quite a bit lower than this, so it's best to take this all with a grain of salt for right now, because these numbers could definitely change, and in a week, or I guess not a week, in a couple of days, whenever this system actually happens, we could be looking at half of these snow totals in the amounts. So just make sure that you are taking this all with a grain of salt, but again, very significant numbers there. As we travel over to the southeastern United States here, you're going to notice a lot of the same, although maybe slightly lower snow totals. Back in areas like Birmingham, Alabama, you're looking at about 8 inches of snow there. Again, that number could be a little bit higher, or it could be way lower, depending on where the ice line sets up with this system. You can kind of see how drastic that cutoff is there. You know, if you're in southern Alabama, you're looking at an inch of snow, but if you're in central Alabama, you could be looking at half a foot of snow, and then northern Alabama could be looking at over a foot of snow. So, very drastic freezing point there, but again, about 20 inches of snow forecasted for Nashville, Tennessee, if this ends up playing out. Again, I don't think that these totals are actually going to come to fruition. I think that this is the GFS conflating snow with ice. But again, even an area, you know, like Louisville, Kentucky, sitting in at still around 7 inches of snow there. Even areas into portions of Virginia, Richmond sitting at over a foot of snow in this run. You got Charlotte, North Carolina sitting at about 16 inches. You got about the entire state of Tennessee sitting at over a foot. Same with North Carolina. Almost same with Virginia and same with South Carolina. So, again, very significant system for hundreds of millions of Americans here. Taking a look at the northeastern United States, the impacts are a little bit less extreme. This is where the system is going to kind of be on its way out, potentially weakening. But with that being said, I mean, you're still forecasting a good few inches of snow for New York City. You've got a good few inches of snow for Boston, Massachusetts. Same with Providence, Rhode Island, about a half foot of snow there. Montpelier, Vermont, about a half foot of snow. Concord, New Hampshire, similar story. So still a very significant event for the Northeast if something like this plays out. But how long has the GFS been suggesting that something like this could happen? Well, it's actually been quite a while. If we take a look at the 12Z GFS, you'll notice that we're watching that same area of snow develop across a pretty similar region, moving across much of the southern and northeastern United States there, and then eventually making its way out around Monday evening. But if something like this were to happen, the totals would actually look quite a bit different for an area like New England, for example, because on its exit, it doesn't quite leave as fast. Again, you're seeing very similar totals there for portions of the Southern Plains, around 20 inches. Again, likely overstated there just a little bit at the very least. Nashville, Tennessee, still sitting in at about a foot and a half of snow, but New England here really picking up on quite a bit more snow. This shows about 10 inches of snow for Providence, about a foot of snow for Boston, New York City even sitting in at potentially just under a foot of snow. So still would be a very significant event for everybody, but potentially even a little bit more significant for areas in southern New England. Now, before we move on, we need to take a look at the Canadian model because the GFS can have some crazy runs that don't necessarily reflect reality. So it's best to compare with other models. And I gotta say, the Canadian model does not show nearly as much. I'm gonna keep that in just because that might be the greatest voice crack of all time. The Canadian does not show nearly as much snow for a lot of these areas. We're watching those snow showers still develop across portions of the Central Plains on Friday morning and afternoon, but eventually by the time this system really gets going through portions of the Central and Southern Plains, it has that freezing point way further off to the north. So areas in northeast Texas where the GFS was saying you could be seeing almost 2 feet of snow, well, now the Canadian's bumping you down quite a significant amount because it's showing mostly ice for you. And again, generally the Canadian model here has that freezing point just way further north. Nashville, Tennessee, we were looking at just over 20 inches of snow on the latest GFS run. Now it almost looks like it could be a mostly rain event for that region. Then the system kind of takes its exit there as we enter Tuesday. And again, snow totals much more conservative for a lot of the United States here. If we go ahead and hone in first on the Central Plains here and the Southern Plains, you'll notice that that heavy stretch of snow that was originally plated around northeast Texas and southwest Arkansas is now nothing. The Canadian literally has no snow for you. Tulsa, Oklahoma still sitting at about a foot of snow, but other than that, we're looking real conservative here with these snow totals. Maybe a trace of snow for DFW if you're lucky. Amarillo still sitting at about 8 inches. New Mexico, some of the mountainous regions could get some potentially pretty high totals. They're just over a foot. And again, that trend really continues across a lot of the eastern United States as well. A lot of Dixie Alley here where we're forecasting 1 to 2 feet of snow via the GFS, the Canadian has nothing for. Literally nothing. South Carolina, where we were looking at the entire state seeing over a foot of snow. Nothing. Tennessee, where we were looking at the entire state seeing 20 inches of snow. Almost nothing. Sure, you're sitting at nearly 9 inches in the northwestern section of Tennessee, but take Nashville in particular, we were forecasting almost 2 feet of snow. What happened? Again, that freezing point makes a whole heck of a lot of difference. And given that we're only about 72 hours out from this system making its dramatic impacts, this is some big, big model disagreements here. The one thing that stays consistent between this and the GFS is our New England totals, although I will say the Canadian even goes a bit harder than the 12Z GFS for New England. It's got a foot of snow for Providence, Rhode Island, 10 inches of snow for NYC, Northern New Jersey sitting at a foot of snow, Montpelier sitting at a foot of snow. Very big difference there. So again, it's important to note that we don't know everything about this system, but if I'm being entirely honest, I would say that the GFS is probably going to get closer to the actual event than the Canadian. I just don't see the freezing line staying that far north. I think that's a little bit unrealistic. There are a couple other models that give us some closer clarity on this event, and they more so agree with the GFS than the Canadian for the most part. So we'll see what happens here, but again, huge, huge model disagreements in this system, given how close we are to the actual event occurring. I will say, though, NWS not being conservative whatsoever with those winter storm watches. Guys, we've got winter storm watches from Arizona to Virginia without a single stop. There's no point in there where you've got a stretch with no winter storm watches. The entire states that I'm about to list are under a winter storm watch. The entirety of the state. You got Tennessee. You got Kentucky. You got Arkansas. You've got all of Oklahoma except for one county. All of those states have the entirety of their population under a winter storm watch. This is one of the largest winter storm watches that I've seen ever for any winter storm event. So we got to make sure that we're watching all of our areas here. Again, check up on your loved ones, guys. This is going to be a major, major winter storm event for millions of Americans. And I mean, again, it's just something that we don't see very often whatsoever, and it feels like this system kind of came out of nowhere. The GFS was forecasting this, about a week ago, but it looks like a fantasy run. That didn't end up being the case. And I was going to load up the Climate Prediction Center website just to take a look at the outlooks for the temperature forecast over the next couple of weeks, but it's having a hard time loading for some reason, so we're just going to end off the video there. It's vital to mention that we are going to be live potentially 3 or 4 days in a row for this event, given on how the event actually takes place. So make sure that you are subscribed so you do get that live winter storm coverage in your notification box whenever we do decide to do that. Maybe another forecast over the next couple of days between now and the event, but I'm kind of busy right now, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Peace out. God bless. That's it. I don't know why I thought I was going to say something else. Yeah, that's because I was going to say something else. Sorry, we're not quite done yet. I do want to quickly give a shout out to all of our channel members. I don't think a lot of you guys realize how much it means to me that you go out of the way to pay a few bucks every single month just to support the channel. Obviously, you guys are getting a ton of exclusive perks as well, but I still really appreciate it. If you don't become a member, make sure to do so by clicking the link down in the description for as little as $1.99 a month. It really helps me out a lot. You, depending on your tier, you get shoutouts at the end of every forecast, access to exclusive member-only videos. You get access to exclusive members-only live streams, which I want to start doing soon. Custom stickers using chat, community posts exclusive to members, trailer videos for upcoming videos, and a lot more. So again, make sure to do that if you do want to support the channel greatly. But again, just liking and subscribing helps just as well if you can't become a member. Totally understand. Anyway, peace out, bye, goodbye, see ya, peace.